theory versus reality.
Fiscal policy is the means by which a government adjusts its spending levels and tax rates to monitor and influence a nation's economy. It is a sister strategy to monetary policy, though, which controls a central bank influences a nation's money supply. Taxation and government spending is a tool of fiscal policy. Taxes are the major source that funds the government. By changing the tax rate, it will change the average consumer's income. The changes in consumption lead to the change in economic output. Government spending is based on how much money the government collects in taxes and how much money they can borrow.
The most frequently used tool is open market operations, the buying and selling of U.S. government securities. The discount rate, which is the next tool, is the interest rate charged by Federal Reserve banks to depository institutions on short-term loans. The last tool is reserve requirements, which are the positions of deposits that banks must maintain either in their vaults or on deposit at a Federal Reserve bank.
The Great Depression started in 1929 and ended in 1939 was the worst economic downturn in the history of the Western industrialized world. In the United States, unemployment reached an all-time high of 25%, and half of the nation's banks failed due to bank runs. The stock market crashed and lost 90% of its value and didn't recover for 25 years. And due to Smoot-Hawley tariffs, the world trade plummeted 65% in dollars, and then deflation combined with reduced income put many of the farmers out of business. The Great Depression happened for many reasons. However, the main cause of the Great Depression was the stock market crash of 1929 that was due to the Fed raising the funds rate. The Federal Reserve had never dealt with a recession of this magnitude and was unprepared to deal with the Depression. Therefore, the Fed failed to increase the money supply, and many banks failed due to the runs on the banks because of the lower money supply. The Great Recession officially lasted from December 2007 to June 2009. The $8 trillion housing bubble bursted in the United States, which caused cutbacks in consumer spending and a collapse in business investment. There was a total loss of 8.4 million jobs, and then family incomes dropped, poverty rates rose, and there was a huge loss on health insurance. The main cause of the Great Recession was due to banks creating too much money. Every time a bank makes a loan, new money is created, and in the run-up to the financial crisis, banks were creating huge amounts of money in just a short amount of time. So in just 7 years, they doubled the amount of money and debt in the economy. And they were using this new money to push up house prices and speculate on financial markets. But eventually, the debts became unpayable, and this caused a financial crisis. And then after the crisis, the banks were refusing to lend, and the economy shrinks.
Classical theory states that the economy is inherently stable. It's a supply-sided policy, and they believe that supply creates its own demand. They believe in flexible prices and flexible wages, and believe that government intervention only makes things worse. They think the economy can handle itself. Keynesian theory is a demand-sided policy and believes that insufficient demand leads to unemployment. They believe that the economy is inherently unstable and that government intervention is necessary to achieve full employment. They aggressively use fiscal policy, such as government taxes and spending powers, to alter macroeconomic outcomes.
The classical theory of economics is best suited to solve the current debt crisis and economic situation. It states that markets will self-regulate as long as government does not intervene. Say's law says that supply creates its own demand. This means that production will generate enough income to purchase all output produced. And finally, flexible interest rates will maintain equilibrium. Classical economics is better suited to solve the current debt crisis than Keynesian economics because Keynesians believe that the economy is suffering because demand is low because people prefer to save rather than to spend. If this were the case and people did have tons of money in savings, then unemployment and poverty shouldn't be so prominent.